have some allergies this morning, just been sneezing, and I've started this podcast a few times in between sneezes. Yeah. Hope I can get through it this time. My eyes are a little puffy, I know, but I know what you're saying. But Pastor Bob, it just doesn't affect your rugged good looks. Thank you. We got some really life-changing things coming up for you and I. Coming up next on Pastor Bob's Coffee Break. This is our poster mug t-shirt for the month. I have been forgiven. We've had a good time with this, haven't we? And you can download that. It's free. Just download it. Go right here, wearemetalwearfamily.com, and get that and the mugs and the coffee and all the stuff. So I have been forgiven. Wow. What a message. And we've had a good time with this message periodically during the month. And I want to talk about it a little more today in a little different context. Now, here's a great question. Dear Pastor Bob, how do you keep from hating all the people in the world who are causing unrest? And all of us are dealing with this right now, you know? And here in the United States, we're seeing all the civil unrest, all the rioting, all the stuff that's happening. And, well, the question goes on. Every day when I read the news, I'm filled with hatred and disdain. How do I move past that? I'm glad you asked. You know, the example of Christ is agape love. And gosh, I have to say that that's the difficult thing to do. You know, to love people with unconditional love as Christ loved us. And a lot of times we look at people and we see what they're doing, and you know, sometimes they're things against Christianity. I'm having trouble with social media right now because I'm being, well, they're not pushing my podcast anymore, even when I pay for it. The numbers are 1/10 of what they were. And a lot of times people go to some of my podcasts and it just says the content isn't available once they click on it. I don't know what to do about that. It is what it is. But I realize that I'm not the only one. There are a lot of people that are being, well, I think discriminated against on a lot of forms of social media these days. And it makes us a little angry, and it makes me frustrated because I can't get the message out to you. And people are writing to me all the time saying, Pastor Bob, why aren't you podcasting anymore? Well, yeah, I am podcasting. So, yeah, it's frustrating. But what do you do? And that's only podcasting. But what do you do when you see unrest, civil unrest? You see all the things going on, and you get frustrated because of what people are doing, and there is a definite bias towards Christianity, and not all religions, mostly just Christianity, mostly just evangelical Christianity, at least here. So what do you do with that? Well, we have two examples in the Bible that we've talked about recently, and something that they both have in common is forgiveness. In fact, for both of them, the desire for forgiveness was their last words. Jesus was the first one, and not the first one biblically, but the first one I want to talk to you about. And Luke 23:34 says, and Jesus was saying, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. His last words. Now here were all the people, and we've talked about this, all the people that were casting lots for his garments, all the people that were yelling horrible things at him. And he's hanging on a cross because they all yelled, "Crucify him." And Jesus looks at them and had every reason to be upset. Yeah. And he says, "Forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." And they didn't. And God did. When Jesus died, he paid the price for the sin of the world. And he says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and overburdened, and I will give you rest." Come out of the world and come into my rest. Awesome. And then we have the example that we talked about a couple days ago of Stephen, the stoning of Stephen, Acts 7:60. And then falling on his knees in worship, he cried out loudly, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them. Do not charge them." And when he had said this, he fell asleep in death. His last words, "Father, forgive them." Where does that come from? And I think these are great examples because it shows the heart of God. And both of them, Jesus, and then again, Stephen, on his knees in worship, communication with God, God feeding his heart, said, "Forgive them." A direct result of our relationship with God is forgiveness. Yeah. Because you see, it's what our relationship with him is based on. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. We quote that, many of us, since we're children. For God so loved the world that he loved us first, agape. He loved us first and forgave us because we deserved it? No. Because he loved us, loves us. And Stephen experienced some of that same love and responded by saying, "Lord, forgive them." He's being stoned. He's being stoned to death at that point. And most of us would be angry and say, "Lord, send them all to hell." Vindicate my death. And he said, "Forgive them." We look at people and we see all the civil unrest all over the world, and we say, "Lord, they don't deserve anything. They're horrible people. Their ideologies are anti-Christian. Lord, smite them." But what has God asked us to do? Forgive them. Say, "Well, they don't deserve it." You didn't deserve it. But forgiveness does something to you, to me. It's powerful for us because forgiveness is the key that opens up the door to agape, God's unconditional love. And forgiveness isn't so much what it does for those people that you're asking forgiveness for. It's more for what it does to you. Yeah. It's powerful for you because it unlocks this door. And when I can boldly say, "I have been forgiven," then I can also forgive others and express that same mentality with other people who need it as much as I did. You know what I'm saying? And again, don't forget, folks, that all of us sin a little differently than each other. It doesn't mean that one sin is worse or better than another. We just sin differently. And when we get enraged and furious at people who are sinning differently than we are, well, there's one element that we're missing, and it's agape. It's God's love, unconditional love, that said it's not because of you, it's in spite of you. It's not that you deserve it, it's that I'm giving it freely. Agape. Agape. Agape doesn't see sin. Agape sees love unconditionally, no matter what. So remember, forgiveness is the most powerful thing for your life. And when you and I forgive, and when we offer that forgiveness, when we read the news in the morning and we become furious, and say, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And we have an attitude of forgiveness. It changes us. We've been talking about going back into the world and being an agent of change. The first thing you have to do is forgive. You can't go into the world and be enraged. You go into the world with unconditional love, and then things begin to happen. What does the world need? Love. God's love. Unconditional love. Love that cuts through my political bias, my sin, my differences with you, my whatever it is. Love, Bible says, covers a multitude of sins. Why? Because it's the dividing thing. It's the thing that takes us from the point of division and frustration and hatred to a commonality. And that commonality is, I choose to love you. And I pray that you choose to love me too. And we'll settle the differences when we have the right foundation to work with. And that foundation's agape. All right. Well, don't forget, you have been forgiven. And don't forget, you are blessed. So go and be a blessing.